Welcome everyone to our webinar this evening talking about teacher resources that VEX Robotics has created to help you go back to school this fall. My name is Jason McKenna. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, where we hope to provide you with some tools and resources to help you go back to school no matter what situation you may be in. If you're doing remote learning, hybrid, if the kids are coming back all day, every day. We've worked really hard over the last couple of weeks or months to try to provide you with some resources and some help as you prepare to go back to school this fall. As I mentioned, my name is Jason McKenna. I'm hosting this evening's webinar. I'm a former classroom teacher myself. I taught for 20 years in a school right outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where we're hosting this evening's webinar. And I know what it's like to go back to school. It's you have a lot to do. You're very busy. You get your new schedule. You get your new class roster. You're thinking about how you're going to introduce yourself to your students. And of course, now this school year you have a lot more on your plate as a teacher. So I'm very empathetic to what you're dealing with going back to school this fall. Some of you may not know how you're going back to school yet. You're trying to determine how you're going to teach a hybrid teaching schedule or remote learning. And if you're a VEX teacher, if you're teaching robotics in your class, it's probably even more difficult for you because, as we all know, robotics is a great organizer for STEM education. STEM is not just a subject, but it's also a pedagogy. So with STEM, you're able to teach collaboration, you're able to teach communication, you're able to teach iteration. But with a lot of the social distancing guidelines in schools right now, having 3 students to 1 robot, it's really going to be difficult to do. So you might be thinking, how am I going to teach robotics this upcoming school year, what I love to do? Well, don't worry. Hopefully by the end of this evening's webinar, we'll have an answer for you, and we'll have some tools and resources that we've created for you to help you with that process. So if you've joined our webinars before, you know how our basic schedule works. But first of all, of course, we have a new set. We have a new studio. We've worked really hard over the last couple of weeks to turn this into a classroom. We work with a lot of local classroom teachers, and they've come and helped us design the classroom. So hopefully you like it. Please give us feedback. Let us know. Tweet what you think about our new studio, and let us know what you think about it. But we're really happy with it, and we'd love to hear your feedback about it. But once again, just in terms of logistics, I'm going to talk for about 45 minutes. I may go a little bit over that because we have a lot to cover this evening. But then at the end of the hour, I'll go ahead and answer some questions for you. But if you do have a question, you don't have to wait until the end to ask it. You can use any of our VEX social media channels to go ahead and ask your question. There'll be people monitoring those channels to answer them for you. Or you can use the chat right in YouTube to go and ask your question. And once again, there'll be people monitoring that. They can go and they can answer your questions for you. But once again, we're really excited to help show you some of the tools and resources that we've been developing. So what are you going to walk out of the webinar hopefully able to know? So if you're a middle school teacher like I used to be, you're used to writing your objectives on the boards. This is what I have right now. We're going to hopefully you walk out knowing today is number 1, best practices for cleaning your VEX robot. This is a question we've gotten a lot over the last couple of weeks. How do I clean my VEX robot? How do I clean the plastic? How do I clean a motor or sensor? We're going to walk you through our knowledge base article that talks about this, and we're also I'm going to give you a demonstration here this evening. Teaching one-to-one with VEX IQ or V5, as I discussed, having 3 or 4 kids working with 1 robot at the same time, that's going to be difficult to do this fall. So we're going to show you how you can go one-to-one with your VEX robot and how VEX Code VR can potentially help you with that. Speaking of VEX Code VR, we're going to talk about how you can use VEX Code VR for remote learning. There's a lot of schools that aren't returning back to their physical classrooms this fall, but instead teachers will once again be teaching from their living rooms or from their kitchens, and students will be learning from home. So we're going to show you how you can use VEX Code VR to help with that. And lastly, we've been working really hard over the last couple months. We have a lot of new stuff since our last webinar. So at the end, we want to talk about some new key updates and things that we want to share with you just to make sure you're knowledgeable about a lot of the things that we've released or we're going to be releasing here shortly with VEX that can help you out with your competition team, your classroom, or both. The main thing, though, hopefully that you walk out of knowing this evening is how you can create meaningful learning experiences for your students. That's why we all got in education. That's what drives us at VEX Robotics. That moment when a student gets it, whether that's in a classroom or it's on the competition field, that's why we're all here. And unfortunately, a lot of the stress that you feel as a teacher or as a competition coach, am I going to be able to do that? Am I going to be able to do that via Zoom? Or am I going to be able to do that in a hybrid teaching model? And we want to be able to help you to do that, because once again, that's why we all got involved in education. That's why we got involved in competition robotics. We want to make sure that you have everything that you need, and we can provide you with everything that you need so that you can continue to create those meaningful learning experiences for your students in your classroom in order to make that happen. Because once again, that's why we all got involved in education. So we want to make sure that you'll still be able to do that. And we're really, really passionate about that. So to kind of start us off with our webinar, with these resources, most of the things that I'm going to talk about here this evening are located at covid.vex.com. And that's going to take you directly to our knowledge base. So I'm going to go ahead and go there right now. So as you can see here at covid.vex.com, that's going to take you right here in our knowledge base. And we have a lot of articles in here basically designed to help you go back to school this fall, no matter what your teaching model is. The first one I'm going to show you is this Vex product disinfecting guide, because as I mentioned to you, this is a lot of the feedback that we've gotten from teachers is, okay, I would like to be able to go back to school and I would like to be able to use my Vex robot, but how do I clean it? So a couple things about this article. First of all, we not only tell you what to use, okay, look for cleaners that list these items, but importantly, we tell you what not to use, right? So don't use bleach on plastic. Don't use liquid on any of the types of electronics. So it's really important that we don't just tell you what to use, but we also tell you what not to use. Then here for each individual platform, we go through the Vex disinfecting method. And this is really simple. The easiest way to think about this is any of the electronics, you're going to want to wipe off, either a Clorox wipe or a Lysol wipe. There's some others listed in the appendix, but basically you're going to wipe off any of the electronics. Any of the plastic pieces or metal pieces, if you have a V5 robot, you're going to want to use a Lysol spray to be able to spray all that off. Okay, so let me go ahead and show that to you how it's going to work. I'm going to go back to the article, and once again, we show you how to do it, and then we get into the actual procedures right here. So here you can see it shows you to wear gloves, wipe the entire outside off, let it dry off, okay? And then replace the wipe when it no longer leaves the disinfectant behind. Obviously, we've all used Clorox wipes before. We know when they get dry to go in and replace them. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to demonstrate this for you right now. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put my gloves on. As you can see, on my table here, I have a V5 controller, I have a V5 motor, I have an IQ distance sensor, I have an IQ brain, I have a Vex 123 robot, I have a Vex Go, our code-based robot, and I also have a Vex IQ motor. So as I talked about a second ago, these things here, I'm going to want to use a Clorox wipe to go ahead and wipe all these different items off. So I'm going to go ahead and get my Clorox wipe out. Okay. And very simply, as I talked about, all that you're going to do here is make sure that you wipe off and cover the entire area. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and wipe this off. The most important thing from the article is, once again, do not dry this off. So after I go ahead and wipe off the entire surface, I'm going to set it down and I want to make sure that I dry it off. And I want to let it dry off for about 4 minutes. So here I have the distance sensor. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to wipe that off. I'm going to put it to the side because, once again, I want to let it dry off. This is my Vex 123 robot with the art ring, so I can, if I want, I can go ahead and take the art ring off. This is what we use to decorate the robot. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. If I go ahead and wipe that off, I can wipe off the art ring completely, put that off to the side. My V5 controller, go ahead and wipe it off completely, okay? And by the way, I'm showing this all on our Vex 123 field. If you're curious about what that is right here, that's our Vex 123 field that you can use with the Vex 123 robot. Put that off to the side. Same thing, obviously, with the IQ motor. And then same thing with the V5 motor. And then finally, this is my code-based robot for Vex Go. Same concept here. I can wipe this off, wipe off the wheels. Okay, go ahead and wipe everything off on it. All right, go ahead and wipe the high touch areas, the motors on the bottom, the battery right here, the brain. So I have all of that wiped off. Then once again, I'm going to put that to the side and I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to let them dry off. Everything that I just talked about, that is located in this article. Everything I just mentioned right there, wearing the gloves, Wipe the entire outside of the VEX item. Do not manually dry the items. At the bottom of the article, you can see here I have some reference and notes, some CDC and EPA guidelines related to VEX Robotics, references, and then I have an appendix. I talked about this a little bit ago. Wipes approved by the EPA, okay, and then sprays approved by the EPA. This is a very thorough article. So everything that you need should be in this article. So now I went through kind of the wiping procedure, but now what if I have a bunch of pieces of plastic? What do I want to do here? In this scenario, now I'm going to use my Lysol spray. I could use Clorox spray if I have that. Here you see I'm using a VEX IQ lid. You may not have a VEX IQ lid. That's okay. You can use a baking sheet. You can use a cooking sheet. Anything basically that I can lay out all the different plastic pieces, or if I was using V5, I have different metal pieces. Anything that I can lay out here would work. Now the thing about this is that what you want to make sure you do is, you see how I have these plastic pieces kind of bunched up here? You don't want that. You want to make sure everything is spread out. If you can't spread everything out, then grab another tray. But you want to make sure that everything is spread out so nothing is covering anything. And then once that's done, just go ahead and get your spray and go ahead and spray everything off. Same concept. You want to wait about 4 minutes to let it dry. You do not want to let it dry on its own. Instead, you don't want to dry it off manually, excuse me. Instead, you want to wait about 4 minutes to let it dry off, and then it should be good to go. So these individual plastic pieces, if you have like a wire or anything else like that, you can put that in there also. But basically what you want to go ahead and do is you want to go ahead and spray this off so that you'll be ready to go, and then you'll be ready to teach for your next classroom. So as you can see there, it's not really that complicated. I know that, getting Clorox wipes is not the easiest thing to do right now. That's why we have other things listed in the appendix, so hopefully that will help you out. But as you can see, it's not really that difficult to be able to clean the items off here. Now, you could be asking a question. You could say, okay, Jason, that's great, but how do I clean that off in between classes and do things of that nature? So that's what we're going to get into now, this idea of teaching one-to-one with VEX IQ or V5. So once again, as I mentioned at the beginning of our webinar, we love teaching robotics to teach STEM because we feel like it's such a wonderful organizer for STEM. It integrates all of the STEM subjects together. You're able to teach science and math and technology and engineering together. Nothing really does as good of a job of that as a robot does. And secondarily, once again, STEM is supposed to be a pedagogy, not just a subject. So fostering communication, fostering iteration, fostering collaboration. Robotics is great for that. Unfortunately, going back into this school year, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to be able to do that. The idea of 3 or 4 students sharing a robot is going to be nearly impossible. So what you have to be able to do is go one-to-one with a VEX IQ or V5, or you could use obviously a VEX Go robot or a VEX 123 robot, mainly since all of you have IQ and V5s. That's what we'll focus on now. So I'm going to go back to covid.vex.com and talk about how we can actually do that. So let me go ahead and go back to the main page here. So you can see here now, teaching one-to-one with VEX IQ. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. The first thing I have here is a link to the disinfecting articles because we feel like that's going to be very important. So we don't want to just put that in one place. You want to be able to put that in multiple places. Now we give you some practical tips for going one-to-one. So just because you can't have 2 to 3 students on a robot does not mean that you can't teach robotics, okay? And so now I go through a couple different bullets talking about here how you can actually do that. So what are we actually referencing there? Well, first of all, obviously, if you have 24 kits, VEX IQ kits, for example, in your classroom, and you have 24 students, use our STEM labs. You can go one-to-one with those students. That's easy. But a lot of you aren't in that situation. A lot of you are in a situation where you have 12 students, and you have 12 robots, and you have 24 students, and normally you share, and you can't do that. So what can you do? What we talk about in that article is you could use VEX Code VR to supplement your physical robots. Now, it's important we're not just saying that, but we're actually going to show you how to do that, and I'll get to that here in a moment. So VEX Code VR is a great way to supplement what you're doing with your physical robots in your classroom. Now, the other important thing about that, if you are doing a hybrid model in which you have students in the classroom, but you have students that are at home and they're learning from home, VexCode VR is a great way to address that situation. You can have students working with their physical robots in the classroom, and students that are attending class from their home, they can be using VexCode VR. And once again, we give you some specific steps on how to do that. If you're limited by devices, so let's say you only have 6 or 7 or 8 computers in your classroom or Chromebooks in your classroom, whatever it is, there are other things that we can do for you. We have Extend Your Learning activities located all throughout our STEM labs. So we give you guidance on how you can use that to give students a supplemental reading, a supplemental research, different things that they can do in the classroom while other students are on the computer. We know that this is a very difficult time for you right now, trying to find resources to teach. A lot of you are spending your time creating things like playlists that you can use in your classroom. So we want to be able to provide some of these things for you, like the Extend Your Learning activity that you can use as a playlist in your classroom. And then finally, our knowledge base. We say that our knowledge base is our online library of everything Vex. Well, you go to a library to learn and to study. So we've created activities that you could use our knowledge base for, that you could go and you can have your students research and do some things of that nature. You could print out the articles if you're limited by devices. But these are just extra resources that we want to provide for you as you're trying to figure out how you're going to navigate this school year and how you're going to be able to go back to school this fall. So everything I just mentioned, I talked about, is in this article, in these bullets right here. So after we kind of established the fact that, yes, you can go back to school and go one-to-one with an IQ and V5 robot, how do I actually organize my classroom? So kind of once you're conceptually bought into the fact that you can do this, how can you now actually organize your classroom? Well, there's a couple things that you're going to have to think about that we give you guidance about in that article. Number one, the students just can't walk in and go get their robots. Like if my robots are up on the shelf, the students just can't go en masse to go get those robots, because then you're going to violate your school social distancing. So it's important for you to be able to have the workstations set up for the students before the students come into the classroom. Now, that's obviously going to take some of your time to be able to do that before class and after class. So what we talk about in this article also is if you're teaching multiple classes of robotics, you might want to think about how you want to stagger that. For example, if I'm teaching period 1 robotics and I have 12 students working with a physical robot, I have other students working with VexCode VR at home, and now I have another class coming in period 2. It might be too much time to clean everything and to get all the individual workstations set up before period 2 comes in. That's okay. Use VexCode VR when those students come in for period 2. Have them work in VexCode VR, so now that gives you time to set up all your physical robots, to clean everything that you need to do. And then if you're teaching robotics again period 3, now you can go back to that hybrid model like we talked about. Then you can just repeat that through the course of the day. After 2 or 3 weeks, switch it up. So now period 1 is all VexCode VR, period 2 is getting the physical robots, so on and so forth. That's an easy way for you to be able to do that. Another thing that you can do to kind of get more use out of your physical robots is just have 1 or 2 robots be the ones that are actually going to be the ones that run on the course. So what do I mean by that? If you're doing our MedBot V5 STEM Lab, or if you're doing the Drive Forward and Reverse VexIQ STEM Labs, you have to download the project to your robot and have that robot run on a course. You probably have 1 or 2 courses set up in your classroom. Well, you can't have 3 or 4 students going up and waiting to run their robot. So instead, you can create a digital sign-in sheet using the Google Doc, or you can use a whiteboard and have the students sign up for when it's their turn to go. Then you only have 1 student at a time. Or you as the teacher, you can be in charge of the robot. So our Drive Forward and Reverse STEM Lab, everyone's using the autopilot build. So you can have 2 of those robots. When a student is ready to run their project, you bring it up, plug in USB cable, the students download it, then you're the only one handling the robot. You take it to the course, then you run it. That can give you more use, more flexibility with your robots because you're the only one running it at that time. Once again, everything that I just talked about here is located in this article about how to organize your classroom to get ready to go. These are the things that you want to be thinking about in order to be able to successfully go back and teach robotics. So we talked about how you can go one-to-one. We talked about how you can organize your classroom to go one-to-one. The last part about this is, okay, how do I actually teach this, okay? How do I actually do this from a teaching standpoint? How do I actually teach half the kids physically in the classroom and the other half home on Zoom? My first period class, all doing physical and virtual. Second period's all doing virtual. Jason, you said I can supplement my physical robot with the virtual robot, but how do I actually go through and do that? Luckily, we've created some actual lesson plans that you can follow along that will show you and walk you through that entire process, okay? So if I go back to our knowledge-based article here, first I'm going to bring up the pacing guide right here. So as you can see here, this is IQ. The next sheet is V5. What we do here is we give you the STEM lab. This is an actual link to the STEM lab itself, a description of it. But here are the VexCode VR activities. These are also located at education.vex.com. Here are the VexCode VR activities that you can use that go along with that STEM lab. And here are the concepts that are in common that you're actually teaching as you're going through and doing that STEM lab. All of the IQ STEM labs are located here, and all the VexCode VR activities associated with those STEM labs are located there also. And we have that exact same thing for V5. So once again, if you're trying to figure out how do I supplement my physical robots with a VexCode VR, we've showed you how to do that in that pacing guide because you don't have to figure that out on your own. We want to be able to provide that for you. So now that you understand how to organize it, well, how do I actually teach it? So in addition to the actual pacing guide, we also made this hybrid classroom lesson plan. So this is your typical lesson plan. This is very similar to the pacing guide right here, the objectives, your face-to-face learning activities. So once again, if you're doing something with a physical robot, here are your face-to-face activities, a description of those face-to-face activities, whether in class or out of class. Here's what you can do with VexCode VR right here, a description of the out-of-class activities, but then down here, we get into the actual teaching guide. So what's my overview? What's my objective? And this is so very, very important because once again, what we want to make sure that we're able to do is we want to make sure we're able to provide those really powerful learning experience for our students. So without this organization, without having clearly defined learning objectives, without having a clearly defined organization of the curriculum, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to do that. And right now, you're probably scrambling, trying to figure out how to do that on your own. So that's why we want to be able to provide this to you so you can provide your students with these meaningful learning experiences that are so important for today and so important for all of our futures. Once again, getting started in the class. Okay, if you're thinking about how to teach the lesson, there's three things that you're always thinking about. How do I get started? How do I monitor student progress in class, right? How do I get the students effective feedback? How do I do things like formative assessment? How do I take a student's knowledge from where they currently are to where I'd like them to be? We give you facilitation ideas and notes on how to actually do that. And then how do I end the class, right? Finally, at the bottom here, if you're doing asynchronous learning, if the students are going at their own pace, we give you some suggestions on how you can do that also. So once again, we're trying to do everything that we can to provide you with as much structure and support that we possibly can so you can be successful going back to school. We also have a sample lesson plan for VexCode VR. So if you're teaching totally remote, if you're going back to school the first 4.5 weeks, the first 9 weeks, the first 12 weeks, whatever, you can see here that we have a lesson plan in here that walks you through. Here are the standards, here's the overview. Same idea, here's the teaching guide. How do you get started? How do I monitor the student's progress? How do I wrap things up? All of that is located in here for you. So if you are using VexCode VR to teach remotely, all that information is located inside of here for you so that hopefully you can be successful once again when you go back to school this fall, no matter what particular teacher's teaching situation you might find yourself in. So a couple other things I just want to show you real quick that we've created here for you. So if I go back to the main page, you'll see here teacher support materials for VexIQ. We wanted to make sure that you're aware of all the information that we have in our STEM labs. So all the great teacher resources, the teacher portal, the teacher toolbox, the teacher notes, the teacher tips, right? Rubrics, extended learning activity, I talked about those, motivating discussion. We want to make sure that you're aware of all of those things, that you feel prepared when it's time for you to go back to school this fall. We want to make sure all of those things are in there. How do I assess? Once again, here's a link to all the rubrics. All those particular things are located in there for you to hopefully help you be successful. The other thing that we've added in our knowledge base is this Get Started section. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that right now. So going back to school, no matter what situation, is always difficult. I have to get all my kits out. I have to do an inventory, make sure nothing was lost over the course of the summer. School IT probably wiped all my laptops, so I have to download VEX Code on everything again. All that entire process, that's what I was talking about. Going back to school is always busy. It's always difficult. It's even more difficult now, obviously, with everything that's going on with COVID. So we create these Get Started articles that hopefully help you when it's time for you to go back to school, to get your robots out, to re-download VEX Code, update your firmware, all those things that you have to do to set up those individual workstations like I talked about, so your kids don't have to do that. We have that in these articles here. So this is a great article, Get Started with IQ. This then links you to that section in our knowledge base. My favorite one that I love, we just published this a few days ago, Coding with VEX IQ. So this takes you through that entire process. Here's where you can download VEX Code. If you're using a Chromebook, if you're using an iPad, a Windows machine, whatever, here's how you can download it. We talk about why you'd want to use templates to go ahead and get started. So when you first download the project, when you first download VEX Code, you're not going to see the drivetrain blocks or the motion blocks. Why is that? We talk about that in here, how you can add those things to robot config, example projects, how you actually use the blocks, how you drag the blocks in, different things of that nature, block shapes, how to delete a block, how you can save a project, how you can update the firmware, how you can download and run a project, download the slots, okay, how you can open a project, additional helpful links, so how to access help, how to use the context menu. And then down here we get into My First Project. So if you don't have a robot built, you can just go and print VEX to the VEX IQ brain right here. If you do have a Clawbot built, for example, this walks you through how you can download a project to make your robot drive forward. So everything is located right here for you, so you can go ahead and get started downloading. Here you can see our Clawbot moving forward here in our video. Everything is in here for you under this Get Started section, and this one particular Get Started article to help you as you get started with this particular school year, okay? A couple other things that I love about this article. It talks about make sure you have a charged battery before you get started. That's fantastic. Everything, though, is linked right here for you so that you can get started, and hopefully it's going to make it easier for you to get started this school year when it comes time to use your VEX robot. So once again, we've spent a lot of time on that over the last few weeks. All the resources I just mentioned right now are located right here at covid.vex.com. So please take a look at that. If you have feedback for us, if there's other things that you want to see added to it, if you want to see more lesson plans, there's a template on there. So if you want to fill it in yourself, you'll notice all the lesson plans that I showed you are Google Docs. So if you want to tweak them, if you want to add something to it, if you want to change something, you can go ahead and do that. All that is located on there. Now, the other thing I want to mention right now is VEX Code VR. Right? Because once again, a lot of you are going to go back to school remotely in the fall. And because of what was going on with COVID at the end of the last school year, we released VEX Code VR in April, and it's been massively successful. It's in dozens of countries all over the world. The stat that I'm probably most proud of is the fact that we have over 10 million projects run on VEX Code VR. So it's been massively successful in helping you, the teacher, keep your students connected to computer science, connected to STEM, and connected to VEX, even if they're at home. Well, even though VEX Code VR was massively successful, we didn't rest on our laurels and just keep VEX Code VR as it was back in April and May of last year. We've actually added a lot of new features to it, a lot of new things to it, to hopefully make it easier for you to teach remotely when you go back to school this fall. So let's go ahead and talk about those right now. So probably one of the biggest things that we add to VEX Code VR is Python. So if I go and open up my code viewer right now, you can see the Python programming language is right there for you. So what's great about this is no matter where your students are, your students, if your students are just getting started with programming, they can obviously program with blocks. If they're in that transition period, then people can go from blocks to text. Or if you want your students just to get started with Python, they can go ahead and get started with a project in Python right away. Now, the question that I get asked a lot is, if my students are using VEX Code VR, is it going to carry over to a VEX robot? And the answer is yes. So as you can see right here, our VEX Code VR robot is full of these different sensors: an electromagnet sensor, a down eye, right bumper sensor, okay, the pen that you can use, obviously. The same logic that you would use to program a sensor in VEX Code VR is the exact same logic to use to program a sensor in IQ or in V5. It's the exact same logic, okay? So there is a carryover. Now, some of these sensors are obviously very similar to the sensors that you do have in those particular platforms. So there's a lot of carryover. The blocks are exactly the same. So a drivetrain command in VEX Code VR is going to be exactly the same as a drivetrain command in VEX Code IQ or VEX Code V5. You can see the size of the wheels. So if you want to use math-based movement, you can do that just like you can on a real robot. There is a lot of carryover here from the logic that you will learn using a VEX Code VR robot to a V5 robot or to an IQ robot. And what's great about this is you can not only use this just in our block-based programming paradigm, but as I mentioned, you can also use this in Python. So once again, no matter where your students are, just beginning, transitioning from blocks to text, or if you want to start in a text-based programming language, you can go ahead and do that. The other thing that we've added to VEX Code VR, which I'm really excited about, is a timer. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start this project now. It's going to bring up the grid map playground. And as you can see now in the lower left-hand corner, let me go ahead and expand the playground here. In the lower left-hand corner, you can see my robot running and the timer running. So I'm going to go ahead and play it again. Reset it and play it so you can see it again. And now this timer is running. So what this does for you, the teacher, is this allows you to do a lot of different fun in-class competitions with your students, okay? So now it's not just a matter of solving the Castle Crasher Challenge, which is one of our most popular playgrounds that we have in VEX Code VR, but now who can solve the Castle Crasher program or playground the fastest? Or who can do it the most efficiently? So, making efficient algorithms is a big concept in computer science. Now we can engage that in a very fun and engaging way in VEX Code VR with the timer that we put in there. This project that I'm showing you right now, this is an example project that we have that shows you how to use the timer and different ways to do it. So as I mentioned, this is a great way to incentivize your students to try to refine their code, try to make improvements to it. We know at VEX competitions is a great way to engage students and to make students iterate on their particular projects. So that's why we wanted to include this in there to help you keep your students incentivized, because once again, what are we trying to do? We're trying to create these meaningful learning experiences for our students. So something like adding this little bit of functionality like a timer in here is really helpful and really beneficial to be able to do that. Now, we didn't just add the timer though, just like anything that we do when we create a new programming language or a new sensor, whatever, we provide support for you. So I'm going to go back to the knowledge base and I'm going to go back to our COVID resources. And I'm going to go back to VEX Code VR, implementing VEX Code VR competitions in the classroom. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And here I have a knowledge base article that talks about how to do this. So you can see here, why hold competitions in your classrooms, okay, different ways you can promote engagements and do all those different types of things, how to use VEX Code VR competitions in your classrooms themselves. We talk about the playground timer feature here, okay. Now, these different activities all have had a timer or a competition section added to them. So if I go and open up the Castle Color Match here, okay, this is our Google Docs that we've created, the different activities that we've created, okay? And if I scroll down, here you can see the different competition challenges right here, okay? So these are things that we've added to the activities in order to make these activities more friendly to do an in-class competition in your particular classroom in order to drive the engagement and do all those different types of things that we were talking about here a moment ago, okay? Now, as you can see here, I have the Stop Project button down here at the bottom of my project. That's a command that we just added, and what that allows you to do is stop the timer and stop the project. That's a new button that we've added in VEX Code VR. So not just the timer functionality in the playground itself, but we did add a few commands to help bring this alive for students. And once again, there's a sample project associated with it. There's help associated with the individual command. So all of that is located in there for you. So really excited about that, being able to use competitions with VEX Code VR with the timer. Really excited to be able to share that with you and be able to do that with you. But the other thing that I'm really excited about is our Computer Science Fundamentals course. This is a course that we are going to be publishing next week, so please stay tuned to VEX social media for more details about that. We are actually planning to have a webinar a week from today, same time, in which I'm going to do a deep dive into our Computer Science Fundamentals course. But for those schools and those classrooms that are going to be teaching for 9 weeks or 12 weeks remotely, we've been getting asked a lot, and do I have an actual curriculum that I can follow? Is there something that I can do when my students go back to school? The activities are great, but I would love to have an actual curriculum I can follow. We're going to provide that for you, and it's going to be free. So VEX Code VR, what I just showed you, is going to be free for this school year. And our Computer Science Fundamentals course, which we're going to publish next week, is also going to be free for this upcoming school year. So if you're a teacher and you're looking for a curriculum for robotics, and you're looking for a curriculum for computer science, and you want to be able to teach robotics and computer science in a fun and engaging way, our webinar next week is going to show you exactly how you can do that using our free Computer Science Fundamentals course to be able to go through and show you all of that. So as I mentioned, I'm going to do a deep dive into it next week, but let me just kind of give you a preview of what's going to be in it and why I think it's going to be so helpful for you when you go back to the classroom this fall. Number one, for all the reasons that I've been mentioning at the beginning of this webinar, throughout this webinar, you don't have time as a teacher right now to sit down and write out lesson plans and determine how you're going to teach the course. So instead, what you need is something that is self-directed for students, that the students can basically go on and just do. And that's how this Computer Science Fundamentals course is set up. It is plug and play. Students can go, and all the direct instruction that the students need is located in the course itself. All the formative assessment is embedded inside the course. You don't have to create it. It's embedded already inside the course. All the summative assessment is embedded inside the course. You don't have to make it. It's all located inside of the course. So everything is student self-directed. So as a result of that, you don't have to create anything else. Instead, we've done all that for you. You don't have to do the direct instruction. Instead, that direct instruction is going to be in the course. That's going to ease your workload. That's one less thing that you have to worry about. And with robotics, with VEX Code VR, it's going to be a very fun and engaging, but also meaningful way for students to be able to learn computer science. So why is it going to be meaningful? Well, and once again, we'll be able to go into more detail with this next week, but it's important to understand this now. If you've taken a computer science course, or even if not, you're probably familiar with the Hello World program. If you've taken a computer science course, everyone begins with Hello World. Well, why is that? It's because you want to give students an immediate feedback on what they've done. I've written a few lines of code, I get immediate feedback and it says hello world, and now I'm more engaged and I'm motivated to keep going. Now that was great, 10 to 15 years ago, but now as students have grown up around iPads, students have grown up with iPhones, just having something show up on the screen, it's really not that impactful for them anymore. I remember trying to teach that when I was still teaching, and students don't really get engaged with that. But instead, actually making a robot move forward, actually having the claw of the robot move and grab something, that's much more engaging for a student. That's why at VEX, we love to say that Drive Forward is the new Hello World. This is a much better way to engage students, and it's authentic. Because robots are ubiquitous. They're all around students. They are in our lives everywhere. So students not only get the engagement of seeing their robot drive forward and getting that immediate feedback, but in addition to that, it's very authentic for the students, and they understand how what they're learning in the classroom is connected to the real world. And that's really, really, really important. And that's why we feel that teaching computer science with robotics And teaching computer science with VexCode VR is a real powerful way to be able to do that. So we're going to be really, really proud to share with you our computer science fundamentals course next week. Once again, pay attention, please, to Vex social media. If you don't follow Vex on social media, please do. If you aren't signed up for their newsletter, please do that. You can go to newsletter.vex.com and go ahead and sign up for it right now. And that'll keep you up to speed with everything that we have right now and all these resources that we're trying to create for you. But once again, we will have a webinar next week to really kind of dive deep into the class. Now, if you're thinking, I can't wait to teach computer science, this is awesome, I wish I had some professional development, no worries, we got you covered on that also. So if you go to certification.vex.com, we have our CS with VexCode VR certification course right here for you. So this walks you through the entire course right now. We've had a couple hundred people go through the course and get certified. That's great. We'd love to make that a couple thousand teachers. Once again, this is free. It's online. It's self-paced. So if you have time one weekend and you want to spend some time learning, about what the students are going to be learning, you can go and do that. All the content in this course is the exact same content that the students are going to be going through also. So I used to like to say when I taught robotics, I was one day ahead of my kids. If you want, you can do that same thing here because it's the exact same content that the students are going to be having in this computer science fundamentals course. So this is a great course that you can go through. You don't have to go through the entire course. You can do it in small chunks as I was just describing, whatever. But it's a great online professional development course. It's 100% free, online. You can go through it right now. That will get you the PD that you need in order to be able to go through and teach the computer science fundamentals course that we have. So please go to certifications.vex.com. You can check that. It's all on there. Now, over the course of the next few weeks, we are going to be adding more materials to our certification course because we know, once again, remote learning, hybrid learning, whatever, it's going to be difficult for you to go back and teach. So we want to go through and we want to make sure that you have everything that you need to teach. So for example, all the answer keys for all the different lesson quizzes, all the different mini challenges, the summative assessment challenge. We want to make sure that you have access to all of those. If you've already gotten certified, don't worry. We're going to make sure you have access to them also. You can always go back into the course, but we'll take care of that for you. But we will be adding some more resources, as I mentioned to you, over the next few weeks and months to make sure that you have the ability to teach this course effectively. So you can see that, and once again, you can go to certification.vex.com to be able to see that and be able to use that. Okay, so going back to our objectives for today's webinar, having flashbacks once again to when I taught middle school, but we talked about best practices for cleaning your Vex robot. We talked about teaching one-to-one with VexIQ or V5. We talked about using VexCode VR for remote learning. Really excited about our computer science fundamentals course. Stay tuned for that. These resources are all located at covid.vex.com, so please go ahead and check that out. So last thing we want to talk about this evening, we want to talk about key updates and product launches for Vex Robotics. So the first thing I want to chat with you about this evening is some of the new sensors that we have coming out. So let me go ahead and go to our top view real quick. So we have some new sensors that are coming out for V5. Some of them are already out and some of them are just coming out. So a sensor that just came out a few days ago, actually, so you can go on the store and purchase it. Go to Vex Robotics and purchase this right now, is the 3-wire expander. You can see it right there. You can actually see the 3-wire expander part of it right there. We have a knowledge base article on this sensor right now. So if you go to help.vex.com and just search for 3-wire expander, you'll be able to see that. That's the sensor that we just published to the store a few days ago. This is our inertial sensor. This was actually about 2 months ago. You were able to purchase this sensor. Once again, we have a knowledge base article for this. Shows you how to program it, shows you where to mount on your robot. All that information is on there for you. But we also have some new sensors that at the beginning of the month, you can look forward to going to Vex Robotics and purchasing. These sensors are once again for V5. This is a distance sensor that you can see right here. This is our distance sensor for the V5 robot. This will all be supported by VexCode, both VexCode Blocks and VexCode Pro. We'll have a release of that coming up in the next couple of weeks to support these sensors. So looking, once again, Please stay tuned to VEX social media for all that information. This is a rotation sensor right here. Go ahead and show that to you. Same thing, we'll have a knowledge-based article for this. Also have support for this in VEX code. And then finally, an optical sensor right here. Okay. All these sensors are located, once again, all these sensors will be on vexrobotics.com. You can go ahead and see about them. If you want more information about these sensors, we have this great page in VEX. It's our coming soon page that you can go and you can see all the different information that we have for this. So that's this page right here, vexrobotics.com/coming soon, okay? So here's some more information about the sensor, inertial sensor, optical sensor, so you can see it tells you what the optical sensor does, the availability of it. Once again, these sensors should be available here in a couple weeks, so you'll be able to go on. Once again, please stay tuned to VEX social media, and you'll be able to get some more information about those. The other thing that I was showing off here previously was our 123 robot, as you can see right here with our art ring. And then also, this is the one build of our VEX Go robot. This is the code-based build. This is the coding robot. What's great about this is this takes about 10 minutes to build. That's it. So if you're used to spending 2 hours making a claw bot, you don't have to worry about that anymore. This will take you only about 10 minutes to build. To make it even easier, you can obviously use the pin tool and go ahead and use that with your VEX Go robot. But this VEX Go robot, and this is the art ring that we have, this slides on really easily onto our VEX 123 robot. Now you can use this, you can actually put VEX pieces in there, plastic in there, you can put pipe cleaners in there, whatever. But this is available for pre-order right now. So I'll go ahead and go back to our coming soon page. And there you can see the different pre-orders for VEX Go and VEX 123. Here are the pages for it right here. Here's some more information about VEX Go. The pre-order page for VEX Go, VEX 123. There's a really cool video that you can watch to learn more. And there's a VEX 123 pre-order page right there, okay? And also, if you're not aware, we have a lot of really great STEM labs that you can go and check out now at education.vex.com. So these STEM labs are live. You can go ahead and check them out right now. The one thing I do want to show you are these activities, however. So our team's been working really hard making these activities. What's great about these is I talked about, going one-to-one with the robot. This is a great solution to going one-to-one with either your VEX Go or VEX 123 robot, because these activities are all student-facing. They're Google Docs. You can print them up, give it to a student. If you're a parent and you want some more stimulation for your son or daughter at home, you can do the same thing here. But these activities are all student-facing. So if I go and I click on one here, let me find the compare it one. Here it is. Click on that. It's a Google Doc, so if you want to make a few changes to it, you can. This is a language arts one. So a lot of these activities are cross-curricular. So to go back to what I was mentioning before, if you're a teacher looking to make playlists and you want to try to find something in language arts, these VEX Go activities are fantastic. Here's more of an engineering one, creature creation, where a student can make their own creature using the VEX Go parts, okay? Multiplication madness, this is one of my favorite ones here, okay? So you can see here that you can do different multiplication things here. These are also things, if you wanted to also, to go back to what I was talking about before, because the plastic that's found in VEX Go is very similar, if not the same, in the plastic in VEX IQ. You can even use some of these activities and use them with your VEX IQ kit. So the multiplication madness one there is an example of one. Creature creation. Those are all different things that you can use with your VEX IQ kit. And you can add that to your playlist. And once again, these are all student facing. They're just a Google Doc. They're written to the student. The directions go directly to the student. So the student can get into it right now. They could do it. They could have a lot of fun with it. With the activities, you can see at the bottom here, there's a level up. So if you want a little bit more challenge, you can go ahead and do that. And then we have these pro tips here. These activities exist for both VEX Go, and these activities also exist for VEX 123. So I'll go to VEX 123. You can see we have activities here. This is a coder monster here. So I talked about the art ring. Here you have a live example of it. I can use the art ring here. Then I can use foam. I can use pipe cleaners. I can use eyes, whatever. I can make a monster with my VEX 123 robot. And then I can program it to move. So a lot of fun things as you can see, that you can do there with the different activities that we have there, okay? So please check that all. That's all on vexrobotics.com. The Coming Soon page had the information about the sensors that I mentioned a moment ago. You can go to vexrobotics.com, go to Go and 1, 2, 3. You can find the actual product page, and then you can also find the preview page on there. All that information is located on there for you once again. So you can find all that information. As I said, here is the Vex Go product page here. You can see the storage solution that we have there. All of these things are great and ready to go and ready to be used in your classroom. So, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and ask a few questions I'm gonna go ahead and answer a few questions right now as we talked about and how we can go ahead and do that. So the first question that I have is talking about 1, 2, 3 robot with special education. Great question, fantastic question, I love this. So in talking about the 1, 2, 3 robot, obviously one of the value props is the 1, 2, 3 robot is the fact that it takes computer science off the screen. So I don't need a device to be able to program a 1, 2, 3 robot. But the other thing with it is that if I'm a pre-reader or if I struggle with reading, now I can just program using the touch commands, or on our coder, we have icons. I can use that to program my 1, 2, 3 robot to do different things. And this is a great solution. It speaks to the VEX continuum, okay? So the example I say all the time was when I was in the classroom, I helped one of our special education teachers teach a math class. It was a pull-out math class. These students were all in 8th grade, but they were on a 4th grade math level. So what I did was, I drove to all of our elementary buildings. I found a bunch of 4th grade math textbooks, and we used that to teach the class. If you're a teacher, you know how to do this. Adaptations are a big part of what you do every single day. But what's the analog for that for computer science? What's the analog for that for robotics? Well, now you have it for VEX 1, 2, 3. If you're teaching an introductory computer science course and you have a student that struggles with reading, or even a student that struggles with a keyboard, or even a student that struggles with a mouse, now they don't have to do something completely and totally different than the rest of the class. They can still have a hands-on robotics experience with 1, 2, 3. So this is a fantastic thing that you can do in order to adapt what you're doing with robotics, in order to adapt what you're doing to computer science, but to still, obviously, the theme of tonight's webinar, still be able to provide yourself or provide your students with those meaningful learning experiences, okay? Another question. Will VexCode VR and these resources be available this year? Yes. VexCode VR is going to be free for this school year. Okay, VexCode VR will be free for this school year. And also the computer science fundamental course that I talked about briefly here during the middle of our webinar, that is also going to be free for this school year. Okay, so both those resources will be free. The VR activities that have been free all summer, those are going to continue to be free also. So the VexCode VR and also the computer science fundamental courses are going to be free. Okay. What cleaning materials should I not use on VEX hardware? Great question. Let me go back to my device. I'll go back to my knowledge base here, go to COVID resources. And if I go to the article, okay, right here it talks about cleaning ingredients to avoid for VEX items right here. And also talks about, when I get down into the procedures here, like avoid getting moisture in any of the openings of electronic items. There's also some interesting things there that you can look at and you can see in order to be able to understand how to do that. The next thing is the same cleaning on metal. So if I have a V5 robot, yes, it's the exact same procedure for cleaning on metal. Exact same procedure for cleaning the electronics with the V5 as I talked about. Everything in there is the same. Probably the most important thing, just as a reminder, but probably the most important thing to think about with that is that anytime you clean the metal or you clean the plastic, or like this field right here, the VEX 1, 2, 3 field, make sure you let air dry. Once again, do not dry it off. Let it dry on its own. And in this article here, if I scroll all the way down, you can see in this chart on the right, it has the required surface contact time. So it's kind of listed if you're using a different cleaning product. It has everything in there. So it's, once again, this article is very, very detailed and thorough, okay? So really, really detailed and thorough article that we provided here for you to try to answer as many of those questions that we have for you. Once again, though, if something is not answered in that article, please let us know. You can always email me at jason.vex.com. You can ask me a question on Twitter, any of those particular things. All of those things are on there for you. VR certification course, there's questions about a VR certification course that focuses just on Python. Yes, that is in our plan to do that. So I sound like a broken record, but pay attention to Vex social media, sign up for our newsletter, go to our blog at blog.vex.com, go to our coming soon page. All that information is being updated on there. Yes, we do have plans for a certification course. We're calling it like our level 2 certification course. That's going to focus on some more advanced concepts like functions and variables in computer science, my blocks and variables and lists, and then transition to Python. We'll have that on there also. Okay. The one thing I do want to make sure I mentioned to you also, there's a question about this, the competition restart guide that was provided by the REC Foundation. If you have not seen that, there's a couple questions about that. Please go ahead and check that out. The REC restart guide. If you have not received that, please contact your regional support manager for your state. If you don't know who the regional support manager for your state is, please go to the REC website. You'll be able to look on there, or go to Robot Events. You'll be able to look on there and you'll be able to see that information to determine who your RSM is. If you can't find it anywhere, just email me. Once again, jason@vex.com. Tell me the state you're in. I'll make sure that you get connected to your regional support manager. They'll make sure that you'll get the restart guide. And there's a lot of information that we got coming out for competitions this year. So pay attention to the VEX social media and also the RECF social media. They have a monthly email that goes out also. All the information is included in there. So keep that in mind as you go through there. So I think that's the majority of our questions that we have here. So I just want to go ahead and close right now. Once again, first of all, I want to say thank you to all the teachers out there that are trying to prepare for this upcoming school year. I want to especially say thank you to the STEM teachers and the competition coaches out there that are really working hard to try to find a way to teach STEM, to teach robotics, to teach computer science, and to use VEX in this upcoming school year. I say all the time, people in my office here get tired of hearing me say it, but I think teaching is one of the most difficult jobs in the world. We ask you to do so much. We ask you not only to be practitioners of the art of teaching itself, but we also ask you sometimes to be curriculum designers. And the most important part of your job is the ability to make a personal connection with your students, okay? All of us, sometimes we have a hard time remembering what we had for lunch yesterday, but I bet everyone watching this webinar can remember who they had as their first grade teacher. That's what teachers do. They make personal connections with our students. That's what you do. And what we want to do here at VEX is we want to make sure that we provide you with everything that we possibly can. So instead of worrying about how you're going to organize your classroom, instead of worrying about how you're going to introduce a lesson, instead of worrying about how you're going to clean the parts, instead, you can focus on the thing that's really impactful, which is making those personal connections with students, and then once again, creating those meaningful learning experiences. If there's anything else that we can do, please contact us, contact me. Once again, email me at jason@vex.com. My Twitter handle is @McKennaJ72. Please contact me and what we know we can do to continue to help you do the great things that you do every single day in your classroom. That's our mission here at VEX. I hope you enjoyed this evening's webinar. Please don't forget about covid.vex.com, and please don't forget to join us next week at the same time when we'll be talking about our computer science fundamentals course. Thank you and good evening.